I want you to think about the smartest person you've ever met. Not the loudest person, not the most popular person, not the person with the most followers, the smartest person. Now answer one question. Were they surrounded by hundreds of people, or were they usually alone? It's a strange pattern. The deeper someone thinks, the less they seem to need the world around them. And for years, scientists, philosophers, entrepreneurs, and some of the most successful people in history have noticed the same thing. Intelligence often walks hand in hand with solitude. Why do some of the smartest people in the world choose silence over noise? Why do they avoid crowds? Why do they disappear for days, weeks, sometimes even years? And perhaps the bigger question is this: are they lonely? Or have they discovered something the rest of us haven't? Tonight, we're going to explore a truth that might completely change the way you think about intelligence, relationships, and yourself. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story about smart people. It's a story about what happens when you begin to see the world differently. Imagine a child sitting alone during lunch. Everyone else is laughing, talking, playing. But this child sits quietly, not because he hates people, not because he's afraid, but because his mind is somewhere else. He's asking questions nobody else is asking. He's thinking about things nobody else seems to notice. And for the first time in his life, he feels something he won't understand until much later. He feels different. That feeling of being different is where the journey begins for many intelligent people. Because intelligence is often misunderstood. Most people think intelligence means knowing more facts, getting better grades, having a higher IQ. But true intelligence changes something much deeper. It changes the way you experience reality itself. Imagine watching a movie. Most people watch the story. A highly intelligent person often watches the story, the camera angles, the soundtrack, the symbolism, and the psychology of the characters all at the same time. Their mind never stops processing, never stops analyzing, never stops asking questions. And while that may sound like a superpower, it often feels like a burden. Because the more you understand, the harder it becomes to find people who understand you. This is why many intelligent people begin withdrawing from the crowd. Not because they believe they're better than others, but because constant misunderstanding becomes exhausting. Think about Naval Ravikant. Think about Nikola Tesla. Think about Albert Einstein. Think about countless philosophers, inventors, writers, and creators throughout history. Again and again, we see the same pattern. Periods of isolation, periods of silence, periods of deep thinking, because solitude provides something that noise can never offer: clarity. The modern world is built on distraction, notifications, social media, endless opinions, constant stimulation. Everyone is talking. Very few people are thinking. And intelligent people often realize something that changes everything. If you want to hear your own thoughts, sometimes you have to escape everyone else's. But here's where things become painful. Because choosing solitude comes with a price. Imagine walking into a room and feeling disconnected from everyone around you. Not because they're bad people, not because you dislike them, but because your mind operates differently. You begin talking about ideas. They want to talk about gossip. You want to discuss meaning. They want to discuss trends. You seek depth. The world rewards entertainment. And slowly, something begins to happen. You stop trying to fit in. Not because you've given up, but because you've realized that pretending to be someone else is far more painful than being alone. This is the secret that many intelligent people discover. Loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness is wanting connection and not having it. Solitude is choosing peace over noise. And there is enormous power in that choice. Because when you're alone, something extraordinary happens. You meet yourself. Not the version of yourself that exists around friends. Not the version of yourself that exists on social media. Not the version of yourself trying to impress the world. The real you. And for many people, that's a terrifying experience, because silence forces you to confront your fears, your regrets, your dreams, your failures, your truth. This is why so many people avoid being alone. They don't fear loneliness, they fear themselves. But intelligent people often move toward that discomfort, because they understand something most people never learn. Growth requires solitude. Think about every great achievement in human history. Every invention, every masterpiece, every breakthrough. At some point, someone sat alone in a room and thought deeply. The world celebrates the result, but nobody sees the isolation that created it. And perhaps that's why intelligent people protect their solitude so fiercely. They understand that their greatest asset is not their intelligence. It's their ability to think without interruption. But there is another reason smart people often stay alone. And this reason is far more emotional. The more intelligent you become, the more aware you become. Aware of people's intentions, aware of dishonesty, aware of manipulation, aware of superficial relationships. And once you see these things, it's difficult to unsee them. Imagine wearing glasses for the first time. Suddenly, everything becomes clearer. Now imagine realizing that many of your relationships exist only because of convenience. That some people love what you provide, not who you are. That some conversations have no meaning at all. This awareness can feel lonely, very lonely, because ignorance often creates comfort. Awareness creates responsibility, and intelligent people frequently choose fewer relationships because they value depth over quantity. One genuine conversation means more than 1,000 meaningless ones. One loyal friend means more than 100 acquaintances. 1 hour of peace means more than an entire night of noise. But perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about intelligent people is this. People assume they're unhappy. People see them alone and assume they're suffering. But what if they're not? What if they've discovered something extraordinary? What if happiness was never about being surrounded by people? What if happiness was about being surrounded by meaning? Because the truth is, some of the loneliest people in the world are surrounded by crowds. And some of the happiest people in the world are sitting alone, reading a book, building a dream, creating something beautiful, or simply enjoying the sound of their own thoughts. Naval Ravikant once suggested that happiness comes from peace. And peace rarely exists in chaos. It exists in silence, in understanding, in acceptance. And maybe that's why smart people spend so much time alone. Not because they've rejected the world, but because they're trying to understand it. And perhaps, more importantly, they're trying to understand themselves. So if you've ever felt different, if you've ever felt disconnected, if you've ever wondered why you enjoy solitude more than others, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you're simply hearing a different conversation, a conversation happening inside your own mind. And maybe the goal was never to become like everyone else. Maybe the goal was to become fully yourself. Because in the end, the biggest question isn't why smart people stay alone. The biggest question is this. In a world where everyone is desperate to fit in, do you have the courage to understand who you really are when nobody else is around?